Okay, are you ready?
Yeah.
So, I'm Cynthia, and I'm the host of the reality series CPS the Horror Stories. I'm not an attorney or a social worker, but a mother who lost her kids to Child Protective Services. And after fighting for about 2 years, I did get my kids back. So now I have this platform to allow parents such as yourself to be able to come on here and just share about the corruption, devastation, and traumatic events that happens when Child Protective Services is in your life. So, Cari, can you go ahead and introduce yourself?
So my name's Cari. Am I allowed to say where we live or should I
Yeah.
not? Okay. We live in Oregon. Marion County is where we live. And so my story is actually comes from the point of view as a grandmother. So the case that I'm going to be talking about refers to my son and my granddaughter. So my adult son and my granddaughter.
Go ahead, let's start. Before you do, is this the first time you've ever had an encounter with CPS?
No. So my first marriage with my the son that's involved in this case, my ex-husband was trying to get custody of him when we split up, and him and the woman he was cheating on me with called CPS on me and my second husband repeatedly and tried to get him taken away. So there was multiple like police reports, and I mean our case file is huge. None of them were ever substantiated. Nothing ever came from any of it. A few times the worker marked founded with no evidence, on them, but never did anything about it.
Wow.
So yeah, so we have, like I said, it's probably a good, I don't know, 4 or 5 inch file of stuff of people reporting, and it was my ex husband and his girlfriend, who was a known child abuser. And I had a letter from CPS when me and my ex split up that said that she was unsafe to be around children, but then they would not help me protect him from being around her. And then she later ended up abusing my son sexually and physically.
Wow.
Yep, and they never helped me either. And then family court, nothing, none of that was. They didn't let me use any of that in family court to keep my ex husband from being around my son unsupervised.
Okay. Um, that's crazy.
Yep.
So tell me how and why CPS got involved now.
So, my son, like I said, he's an adult. He's 20 years old. Um, him and his wife, um, had their own apartment. His wife is disabled, so she has a physical disability, and so they kind of already had them flagged, I think, because of her physical disability. And my mom was her caregiver, so she gets assistance through senior and disability services. My daughter, soon to be ex daughter in law, does. And so my mom was her caregiver. And, anyways, the baby ended up with what we thought was a dislocated arm after my daughter in law said she accidentally rolled over on her when she was breastfeeding her. And so she went to the hospital and they found out that the arm was actually broken when they went to the hospital, and she was only 2.5 months old. So anytime a broken bone on an infant like that, they do a full body scan, and it ended up being that the baby had 35 fractures of varying degrees of healing all throughout her body. And so uh basically my daughter-in-law then starts making false accusations saying that my son has nerve damage in his hands and that he must have done this to the baby, not knowing his own strength. But what she failed to tell anybody was that she had rolled on the baby multiple times, dropped her, and because she has physical, limitations, um but she wanted to put the blame on my son. And then also, uh the baby had multiple markers for a medical condition. So in her file, she they say that she had the medical findings of rickets, she had vitamin D deficiency. And then we ended up, after all of this happened, we ended up hiring a medical expert to review her medical file. She also had failure to thrive, so she was underweight. She had only gained 10 ounces from birth. Um, and she ate all the time.
In how long?
She was 2.5 months old when all this happened.
Wow.
But so we didn't realize that she wasn't gaining weight because of COVID. She wasn't going to the doctor. They had canceled her in person appointments and they were only doing phone appointments. So we weren't weighing her. And she outgrew. So she originally was in preemie clothes when she was first born. She was super tiny. And she had outgrown the preemie clothes and she was in newborns by the time this happened. So we didn't know she wasn't, we just thought she was small, her mom's small. And so we didn't realize anything was wrong with her, and she never acted like she was in pain or anything. We had no idea that she had all these fractures, and she never had any bruises. She never cried like she was in pain, nothing. We didn't know anything. So what ended up happening was, my daughter-in-law made all those false accusations. CPS came. They did an order of protection with my daughter-in-law. Did not allow my son to have any say in that order, and my daughter-in-law signed this order of protection to give the baby to her grandmother, who the baby had never even met, who lives in Texas. And CPS allowed the grandmother to come pick up my granddaughter and take her to Texas. At 2.5 months old, in the middle of a pandemic, this lady she's never met before, take her out of the state.
Wow,
And
that gives me the chills.
yep, they never looked at any local family. CPS lied and said that they called local family. They did not. There is not an open juvenile case. They never opened a case in juvenile court. All they used was this 10-day order of protection to kidnap my granddaughter and take her to Texas. And that's what they did. And then, so CPS did their so-called investigation and claimed that they have enough to say that abuse occurred, even though, like I said, we hired a medical expert. Our medical expert looked at everything, um, and testified in court, in family court, that this is not abuse. There is no way it can be abuse because there is no pattern to the fractures. There would be a pattern. There is no pattern. She has a medical condition. Our medical expert believes she has what's called infantile hypophosphatasia, which, if you look it up, it's a type of, basically it falls into, they have similar um things of rickets, but it affects the ALP, which is the alkaline phosphate. So there's an enzyme missing. from the person that has it, and it makes it so their bones can't get hard. So the layman's term for it is soft bone disease.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, it's a very rare disease, but um, that is what our medical expert testified to in family court. And then my soon to be ex daughter in law, her grandmother is a doctor in Texas. And so they have basically kept my son from getting any records since she's been gone. And the
How
family,
long how long has she been gone?
she's been gone since May.
Wow.
Yep. And my son just started getting video visits with her because they were trying to just keep him away from her forever off of nothing. He has not been My son has not been arrested. He has not been charged or convicted of any crime. And there is not an open juvenile case.
Sounds like you guys need an attorney.
We have an attorney. And I've tried to get somebody to sue CPS and the police department and everything because they have completely ruined my son's life. They went to their apartment complex and said all sorts of horrible things. None of it is even true. And so now on his rental history, they have it marked as domestic violence, that there was domestic violence as to why he moved out of the apartment. There's all this stuff that they did to him. And my son, he's a good person. He's a hard worker. He works full time. All he ever did was take care of his wife and his daughter. And they have just trashed him. And the we're going through family court right now, and the judge wanted genetic testing done because that's what needs to be done for this condition to confirm it, even though we have a preliminary diagnosis from our medical expert.
Right.
And the grandma did backwards, behind the scenes phone consult with the specialist behind my son's back because he wanted to be there. He wanted to be on the phone, and they did it behind his back. And she lied. She lied about the condition of my granddaughter, and we have video proof to show that she is behind. She has all sorts of problems that would prove that she needs this genetic testing, but she got the specialist to say she doesn't need it, and the specialist never even laid eyes on my granddaughter. Never did a physical exam. Never even looked at her medical records. So,
Wow.
yeah. Yep.
That's crazy.
I can't believe the way that this whole thing has went, that they can just kidnap somebody's child with no real there's nothing. There's nothing to prove what they're saying is true.
Where's the mother?
In Texas with the grandmother and my granddaughter. What were you going to say?
Are her and your son talking at all?
Nope.
So this happened out of nowhere. There wasn't like a fight that.
Nope. But see, the thing is, we later found in the investigation stuff, when we were looking for evidence to prove my son was innocent, we found an old phone of hers that she thought wouldn't turn on. And we found text messages between her and her family of her telling them she wanted to move to Texas, and she was going to come up with a plan to be able to move to Texas, because she kept asking my son to move there, and my son said no, he wasn't going to move there. All of his family is here.
Well, isn't that proof right there?
I know.
can't your attorney use that as?
Yeah, and we have her under oath actually at the first court hearing admitting that that was true.
Wow.
Yep. But the biggest thing we need to be able to prove is that the baby has this condition, and we know she does. And the other messed up thing is the police and CPS, nobody interviewed anybody that could testify to the fact that the mom had rolled on the baby multiple times. I mean, she rolled on her, and they kept trying to say that, oh, well, the bed should have absorbed the impact, but not with soft bones. No, it won't. And I mean, even in the medical record, she like contradicts herself because she was first seen at the local hospital in the town that they lived in and then transported to the big city hospital for further evaluation. So at one hospital, she says one thing, and at the next hospital, she says something else. Her story changed.
Hmm.
Yeah. And her and her family tried to block my son from being able to get the medical records too. So she took the baby's birth certificate when she left to the hospital that day. So if this wasn't set up, why did she take the baby's birth certificate? And then went around and got my son taken off all the medical releases, which I don't know how she could do that when they were married, but she did. So we had to go through the process of ordering a birth certificate just for him to be able to get the baby's medical records.
Wow, what a hassle all of this is. What a sneaky person.
Yeah. Yep. Master manipulator is what it is. Yep.
I'm kind of blown away. Like, I thought my family was bad.
Yep.
So his rights have not been removed.
Nope.
But now that they're out of state, it's going to be very difficult to make them come back, isn't it?
Well, it is. So, but the thing is, so that's why we're in family court. They're going through a divorce. So, he filed for divorce the day after all this happened. So, because that's what our attorney said the only way to handle this was for him to file for divorce to get it in front of a judge because they were trying to basically just steal her. And they would have been able to do it had my son not got the attorney and filed for divorce because that's the only way we got in front of a judge. So but the judge granted the mom temporary custody because the baby's already there. Well, we're going through the divorce because he said he was afraid if he brought her back, because that's what we asked for him to order her back to Oregon. He said he was afraid if he ordered her back to Oregon, CPS would just come in and do a case in juvenile court and take custody of her.
How? That doesn't even make sense.
I don't know. That's just what the judge said.
The judge in family court?
Yeah, in family court. The judge in family court said that he was afraid if he brought her back and gave her to my son, that CPS would step in and take custody.
I can see that being that the mom has lied so much and there's, oh my gosh, so much going on. I can see that happening, unfortunately.
So that's the only reason that we think the judge sees right through them and their lies, because they were both lying. The grandma and my soon to be ex daughter in law were both lying under oath in court, and the judge could see right through it. Oh.
Wow.
Yeah, so my son only gets once a week video visits for maybe a half an hour with his daughter. She's been gone since she was 2.5 months old.
What about you? Do you get to see her?
No, nope, they won't let anybody else except for my son.
Have you thought of fighting for grandparent rights?
I want to be able to help my son as much as I can with his fight, because I know if we can help him get her back, then I'll be able to see her. So that's where we've been focusing our energy. We don't have money like they do. This grandmother is a doctor. She owns 2 clinics, and they have money. We don't. We had to take out loans against our house. I mean, we're paying for everything. And my son just works at a lumber mill. He makes minimum wage. So every dime he gets, he's having to put into this fight. And we're helping him as much as we can. But we're not rich people. We have 4 kids of our own. So,
Wow. I get it. You know, unfortunately, money talks.
yep. And the grandmother now, we just found out after the last court like check-in with just the attorneys, the grandmother has tried to intervene in the case, and she's hired her own attorney because she's trying to take custody, even though neither one of the parents has been proven to be unfit.
She wants to take custody from her own granddaughter now?
Yeah,
Her own daughter? Is it her daughter?
it's her granddaughter. And mind you, this lady is 75 years old and has MS, the grandmother. Yeah. So,
Wow, that's really interesting.
because I looked on CPS's like rules and regulations and stuff, and they're supposed to take into consideration the person's health that is like taking the child, and whether or not they know the child. They didn't do any of that. They did not follow any of their own guidelines.
They won't if there's money involved. They get to they think they get to just make up the rules as they go. And the problem is there's no authority above them that tells them, no, you can't do this. They just do whatever they want.
Yeah. Until people fight back.
Yeah, but even then, it's such a worldwide issue that they don't care. They just don't care. And of all the fighting back that I've seen, I haven't seen anything change.
Yeah. I know. I understand completely. I'm just not going to let myself get discouraged, because I mean, we're religious, and I know that God is bigger than all of this, and I truly and honestly believe we are in a battle against good and evil, and their lies and deception are going to be shown, and that is what we are believing and what we are praying, because we know the truth.
I agree. And I believe in that wholeheartedly as well.
And
Wow.
CPS, they need to be brought down, And I mean, I have wrote letters. I even wrote a letter to the president. I mean, I wrote letters, and I've sent evidence. I sent evidence to all of the state representatives in Oregon. I sent the medical expert report and a letter from the Soft Bone Society, which I'm a member of now after we got the preliminary diagnosis for her. And they've given me lots of resources and stuff, and so I've read up about her condition, and so we're ready to help when we get her back, because I know eventually we will get her back.
You know, I don't know if you're familiar with the radio show that I co-host.
I've seen some advertisements for it, but I haven't watched.
Well, this weekend it's Saturday at 2, and I would love if you called in and just kind of shared a little bit about this. It wouldn't be this long or an interview like this, but it would be, you know, quicker. And my attorney, that is the host of the show, would kind of give you some direction, which I think would be helpful. So in case, you know, maybe your attorney hasn't mentioned something, then maybe we can offer something.
Okay.
So if you message the page that you were talking to, then we can give you that info and set you up for a call.
Okay. Yeah, I can do that.
And lastly, what would you say to parents or family members such as yourself that's watching, that's either dealing with this or didn't know this existed? What would you say?
Just don't give up. You got to stay positive, keep your head on your shoulders, don't let the system beat you down, and keep fighting, because they only win when you stop fighting.
You're right. How has this affected your son?
I mean, he definitely you know, he's been down, and he misses his daughter, but I think that it's definitely opened his eyes up to how truly evil people can be.
Sounds like somebody's banging on your door.
Yeah, it's my 7-year-old. But
well, I will be thinking about you guys and praying for you. And if you don't mind, I'd like to stay updated in the case. Maybe you can let me know how things go, and we can do another interview to let people know what's going on.
yeah, I'll do that.
Okay. Well, Cari, it was so nice to meet you. I know your son wants your attention. So I will let you go, and we'll talk soon.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.